Thank you very much. I think that maybe the thing I'm the most lucky about being here is that nobody will ask me about my views on the domestic political situation.
Be sure about it.
And the other thing I'm not sure I should be proud of is that I was the first child in my community, in my village, to leave school at 15, to go to high school and then university, the very first one. All the others, they joined a company at the age of 15 and they earned money. So that was very humiliating for me on the weekend when I would have a beer with my friends. I would need to ask my father to give me $10 or $20, and they had already a salary of $200 or $250 per month. This is what I want to tell you about, our very special, well, I don't have much to say about domestic politics, but I have a lot to say about education, because I do believe, to respond also to what Dr. Kaplan said before, I do believe that our education system is probably the closest you can get to an education system which is preparing the children to integrate into the labor market, but also probably the closest system to the needs of the labor market and the needs of the companies. 70%, 7 out of 10 young Swiss do not go to a high school or university. This is the highest figure in the world. Because since the 60s, all over the world, what happened there? So please, can you correct that? All over the world, since the 60s, the priority has been made for young people to go to university. University degree was perceived as the key to a successful professional life. We never made that choice. We never made that choice. Quite the opposite. In Switzerland, the choice of a profession is usually made at the age of 15. Young people look for a contract with a company, and the standard feature is that you work 4 days a week in the company, training on the job, and then you do 1 day a week, we're back. Then 1 day a week you go to a school, to a professional school. So 80% of the time you learn on the company, 20% only you are at the school. And you get a salary, you have a contract. After 2 to 4 years, depending on the profession, then you go through an exam. The exam is being designed jointly by the profession, by companies, the private sector, and by the Ministry of Education, the Federal Ministry of Education. If you are good, then you can continue your studies, go to the high school, and go to university. There are between 220 and 250 certified and recognized such professions in Switzerland. So that's a bit complicated Swiss education system. On the left side, you have the professional education system, which covers about 70% of young people. And on the right side, you have the traditional high school system, which is covering about 30% of the population. So this is what we call vocational education training sector, and which can lead to the professional education sector, which is the higher level. And this is what we call general education, which is the standard high school, which leads to standard universities. But you will see with the little blue lines that there is a total permeability of the sector, and that you can actually start as an apprentice in a bakery shop and end up doing a PhD in chemistry in some of the best schools in the world. To give you one example, to make it a little bit more tangible, I have a family member, he's today 27 years old. He started when he was 15, he left school, and he joined a company producing machine tools, which are themselves producing spare parts for all sorts of industries, very precise. After 3 years in that school, he received his federal diploma as a mechanic, specialized mechanician. His first job was with that very company where he had been trained as representative of the company when he was 21 on the American market. He was based in Chicago, and he had a quite decent salary. Whenever there was a problem with one of these machines in San Diego or in Detroit or wherever, he would catch a plane, go there, fix the problem, and come back. Then he did a bridge school, so a one-year high school, to get the degree, the key to enter an engineer school. He did 2 years of engineer school, and today, with 27, he's the owner of a company with about 50 people producing mechanical spare parts for the automotive industry, the airspace industry, the watchmaking industry, the medical industry. His products are being sold all over the world, from America to China. We are competitive towards China. Actually, Switzerland is one of the few countries in the world which has a trade surplus with China of over 10 billion per year. And it is also because we managed to preserve these professional skills. How does the system work? You know, we are a federal system, which means that we have cantons, local collectivities, if you want, which are very strong. And actually, the primary responsibility for education in Switzerland lies not with the federal state, but with the cantons. That's why you can say we have 26 education systems. But on this one, there is a harmonization throughout the country. And actually, it's a private-public partnership between the companies, the local collectivities, which we call the cantons, and the Confederation, which is providing the certification. As you can see, the private sector is very much involved. It means that it has to invest in the system, but the private sector is also taking benefits from the system. If you look at these columns, the red one is the cost per company for the training of one apprentice. The blue one is the productive output of this person, of this trainee. You see that in the first year, the costs are almost equivalent to the benefit. But over a program of 3 years of apprenticeship, the benefit is already higher than the cost, and over 4 years, it is also the case. So the companies, they do benefit, even purely financially, from the system, but there is more. Now, if you add all the companies which are taking apprentices and you compare the costs to the benefit, you will see that the gross cost of the system per year is something around 5.3 billion Swiss francs, which is like $5.3 billion. The productive output is 5.8 billion, which means that the net benefit for the companies, for all companies together, is almost $500 million Swiss francs. So it's a very profitable education system for everybody, because the young people earn a salary, the companies, they make money, and the state provides the framework. So this is the way it is organized. The collective costs are being shared between the cantons, which are paying about 3/4 of the cost, mostly the schooling systems. It's about 2.6 billion per year. The Confederation takes 1/4 of the cost, which is also creating the education framework, paying salaries for learners and trainers, about 1 billion per year. And the companies are paying for the salaries of the apprentices. Usually the salary for an apprentice, be it a cook will get less than a watchmaker. You know, watchmakers are sort of the aristocrats in Switzerland. So a watchmaker working for Rolex, the first year of apprenticeship, when he's 16 years old, he will make about $500 a month. The second year, probably around $1,000 a month. And the third year as an apprentice, so when he's 17, he will make about $1,500 a month. And then, after he has finished, after 3 years, he gets his federal certificate, he has a diploma as a watchmaker. Then he can decide either to join the company, Rolex, for instance, or to go to another company, Omega, Longines, you have it. So it's a very competitive market, which means that the salaries are pretty high because they are always looking for good watchmakers. And probably the initial salary in a good company when you are 20, 21 years old could be something around $5,000, more or less, maybe sometimes even more, for a 21 years old guy. To sum up, we see the apprenticeship as a market with three main partners. First, the young people, who have to make their choice between about 220 to 250 different professions. Second, the companies, which are offering jobs and training programs in with different conditions. And thirdly, the federal state, and the collectivities, the cantons, which are providing for the framework conditions, including paying for the education institutions. So this is a very unique system. There are not many places in the world where you have a system like that. What are the strengths and advantages of these systems? Firstly, as I said in my introduction, it is highly correlated with the needs of the labor market. So with this system, it's probably the best to make sure that the needs of the market are being fully met. Secondly, you have the best quality of training because you combine the practical training together with the theoretical knowledge. Thirdly, because you can start as an apprentice in a kitchen, but end up in the Swiss Technion as a PhD in chemistry, it shows the permeability of the system where each student can also flourish, blossom, and express all his skills. What is good also, I think, for the integration and for the unity of our country and of our different institutions, it is a collective governance structure, meaning that it is the best kind of partnership you can get between the state and the companies, the private and the public sector. And finally, as we have seen before, it is very much cost efficient. Furthermore, we should also speak about the benefits for the society and for the economy in general. The first one is that the level of youth unemployment in Switzerland is probably the lowest in the world. It is less than 3%. It reflects also the level of youth unemployment, the level of unemployment at all in Switzerland, which is also less than 3%. Secondly, it helps us to maintain a highly competitive economy despite very high salaries. Most studies on the competitiveness of the economies usually put Switzerland as the most competitive country in the world, and it is one of the key factors is our education system, which is being implemented and designed in close partnership with the companies and with their need. Secondly, innovative capacity. Also in most rankings about innovation, Switzerland comes first. And there is a strong correlation, which has been studied, between a company with a lot of trainees, of apprentices, and its innovation capacity. And the result is that the more apprentices you have, young guys, the more the company will be innovative. Fourthly, you have also managerial skill, a leadership style in companies, which is very effective because usually the medium and senior ranks of leadership, of management in a company, they went through the apprenticeship system, and therefore they combine both the leadership skills but also the technical skills, so they can really lead by example. You know, I have a cousin who is an electrician, and now he's working in a company, Bombardier, where most of the middle management are engineers who have been to French schools. So they have just no ideas on how to work, but they come and give orders. So all the time he has to tell them, it won't work like that. And he's correcting them all the time. So combining these technical skills with the managerial skills is, I think, also a key to the competitiveness of our economy. There are a few more benefits that I would like to mention which are not there. The first one, and I was inspired also by what has been said by some of the speakers before. It gives also, I think this system is very good for equal opportunity for everyone. You know, it happens often that you meet people who have been through that system and who end up who were just sons and daughters or daughters of farmers, of immigrants, of what you would call low class of society, but who end up in a leading position. I mean, there was a famous case of a Swiss banker, actually the CEO of UBS at one point, who had never been to university because he had gone through that system. And UBS is one of the largest banks in the world. This can reflect also on the government. I'm talking about Swiss domestic politics here, that I can. We have 7 ministers. By constitution, you cannot have more. Out of the 7 ministers, 2 of them, they are by profession farmers. They did an apprenticeship as farmers. So I think that is very good in terms of equal opportunity, as is proven. And finally, it favors also social integration. It is not very well known here. You are an immigration country, obviously, but we are also an immigration country. 33% of the population of Switzerland has either 1 or 2 parents who were not born in Switzerland. In places like Basel or Geneva, this rate is almost 60%. So we have a very vast diversity, and this apprenticeship system very much contributes also to the social integration of our new immigrants. Because when you are 16, you are still young, obviously. You can still learn, and being in the framework, in the structure of a company where you have to learn some values to respect your boss, to respect those who have more experience, to respect the order in the company, this all contributes also to the integration of those new groups. Finally, this system, which have produced really good results for our economy, has become an export hit of what I call the soft power of Switzerland. We even have an agreement now since 2015 with the United States of America to work together on trying to introduce either this system or parts of our system in the United States of America. It's also part of the American plan to reindustrialize their country. We have also a program like that with France and other European countries, always in the idea we have to reindustrialize Europe. And we have managed, thanks to this system, to keep a very strong industrial basis. Now, we have started a cooperation with Israel, mostly with the Ministry of Social and Labor. There is a pilot project. We're also working together with Joint, which I think is known to most of you. And I think we can address some of the structural, social, and demographic problems of Israel this way. Some of the barriers that I have noticed while trying to discuss this and working with Israeli partners from the private sector, but also from the public sector and from the civil society, are 3 barriers that need to be overcome. First, there needs to be a true involvement of the private sector. Actually, the driving force must be the private sector, and the public sector, the government, has to offer the framework conditions. Secondly, there needs to be a mental shift from the idea that everybody needs to go to university. You know, not everybody can be a star in the startup scene. You have like 9% of the population which is working in the high-tech scene on the coast. I'm not sure you can ever have much more than maybe 15, 20% at best. But you need also people who are doing other tasks and that they do them well. That contributes also to the competitiveness of the infrastructure and of the economy and of the country. And thirdly, what I hear often is that the parents will not allow their kids not to go to university because it would be perceived as a defeat, as a failure, as something which is degrading. Well, as I tried to show during my presentation, you can have been through a professional training only and be a very successful entrepreneur. Actually, my point would very much be that you are better equipped to be a successful entrepreneur if you have been only through professional training. Secondly, you can think of a system whereby you do professional training first, but then you can still join the university according to the model I have mentioned. I would like to finish my presentation by thanking you for your careful attention and by quoting my grandmother, who used to say, "There are no stupid jobs, only stupid people." Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ruch. You had a very wise grandmother, and it was fascinating. Thank you very much for joining us and being with us here.